Hello, I'm Dr. Howard Stevenson and the Director of the Racial Empowerment Collaborative at the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education and the co-founder of Lion Story. It's hard to explain healthy racial comeback lines without talking about racial socialization. Racial socialization is the what and the how parents use to explain racial politics to their children. The talk, as it is commonly known, is really about the talks. And the talks include racism information and racism preparation. Being explicit and practicing how to cope with the stress of unpredictable racial hate is what I call racial literacy. Racial literacy is the ability to read, recast, and resolve racially stressful moments. If racial socialization is about information and preparation for racism, racial literacy is about confrontation. Racial literacy is like racial socialization, but with attitude. Enter in healthy racial comeback lines. Now, it would be great if Black, Indigenous, and people of color didn't have to experience racism. But we can't risk that it won't happen, or pretend that racism is over, or is a hoax, or is not traumatic. Racism is traumatizing. But the nagging question behind the talks is why? Given that Black and brown people are just as human as white people, why do we give these talks? 4 reasons. Healthy racial comeback lines represent one of the many racial literacy strategies to help Black and brown people protect themselves, affirm themselves, redirect themselves, and connect themselves to healing. In essence, when you use a healthy racial comeback line, you are saying to yourself, I reject your rejection of me. They are statements, thoughts, attitudes, mannerisms, movements, words, and assertions that say, I reject your rejection of me. Now, to deliver a good comeback line after a racially stressful or hateful moment, you must count the cost. You must count the cost, and let me say it again, you must count the cost of that hate on your bodies, hearts, minds, and souls. Calculate the cost to your feelings. Locate on your body where you feel the hurt. Track what your self-talk and memories are saying to you. Then breathe and exhale to center yourself. Calculate, locate, communicate, breathe, and exhale. Think of it as if it's like putting an emotional mask on to protect you from the virus of racial hate. Let's just say for a moment that you are minding your business and someone you know but doesn't like you comes up to you during work or play and calls you the newest version of the N-word. Do you A, do nothing, B, insult the person with a smile, C, run, D, tape record the conversation with your phone, or E, insult the person without a smile? Well, silly, it's none of the above. It's actually F. Say to yourself, I reject your rejection of me. Okay, so maybe saying I reject your rejection of me is not very cool, but it's not for the messenger of the hate. It's for you. Now you're probably saying, how do I come up with a comeback line for a damned if I do and damned if I don't racial moment? Practice. Have you ever told a joke to your friends and you screw up the punchline, and instead of laughing at the joke, they laugh at you? The worst comeback lines are those you haven't practiced. Remember The purpose of comeback lines are not to harm or retaliate, but to protect, affirm, guide, and connect you to your humanity, health, and support networks. There are two types, healthy and unhealthy. Unhealthy comebacks help you practice to get to the depth of how the racial micro or macro aggressions have hurt you. Healthy comebacks are for using with the other or the messenger of hate and communicate most accurately what you really feel and what you really want to say. So let's practice a few comeback lines for the N-word. And let's say it made you feel angry at an 8 or a 9, like outraged. So response 1A, excuse me? That's kind of weak. So let's try it again. 1B, excuse me? That's a little better. We call this the safe return comeback because this is where your only intention is to hit the ball back into the messenger's court. This can be done in seconds to freeze your opponent just long enough for you to come up with something better to say. What if a coworker or friend comes up to you and says, you know, whenever I think of you or see you, I don't see color. I never really saw you as a black person. That's funny. As long as I've known you, not a day has gone by that I didn't realize or forget that you were white. Honestly, it hurts me when you say that, because it means I've been invisible to you. And sadly, it means we can never be close, because not only could I not tell you how challenging or glorious my life has been as a black person, but you wouldn't see it even if it happened right in front of you. Now, I have several of my own I created and use. There is the backhand backstroke comeback. The series is a heart attack comeback. The Karen isn't sharing comeback. And finally, my favorite is, I wish a motherfucker would come back. So, I think you got the idea. It's better when you do them and create them on your own. Remember the 8 rules of racial healing comeback lines. 1. Say them to yourself first. 2. Don't say them to the messenger unless you really want to. 3. Say in your heart, I reject your rejection of me. 4. Don't say them without practice, please. 5. It's confrontation, not retaliation. 6. Remember to create them with your style and your personality. 7. Match your response to the intensity of the harm. And 8. Use unhealthy comebacks for feeling and healthy comebacks for dealing with the racial moment. Now, I know you can do this, and not just because racial healing will be fun and good for your body, mind, and heart, but because you'll fall in love with your social justice, radical, hopeful self, and your soul will thank you later. Remember, it all begins with storytelling. Tell your story. Heal the village.